Welcome to the Well-Rounded Grappler. I am your host, Coach Stanley. These episodes are dedicated to all my wrestlers, past, present, and future, as well as anyone that has helped me along the way. My hope is to give inspiration or motivation to anyone on their own grappling journey. On the Well-Rounded Grappler, we will be talking with various individuals from the grappling world, from coaches to competitors in wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, and sambo. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for listening. Rick Hawn, Judo Olympian and mixed martial arts champion. Coach Stanley dives deep into Sensei Hawn's roots in judo. We discuss growing up in Oregon, his high school wrestling career, living in the Olympic Training Center, his journey in Athens both on and off the mat, and his upcoming MMA fight this summer. This and more on episode 8 of the Well-Rounded Grappler. Welcome to the Well-Rounded Grappler. Our guest this evening is none other than Rick Hawn. Rick, thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in the world of grappling?
Absolutely. So I've done a lot of different kinds of grappling throughout my life. I originally started with judo. That was my first martial art that I started training when I was around 12 years old. And then I wrestled in high school for a couple years, and then personally in jiu-jitsu when I started training for MMA after I retired from judo, and that's pretty been, I'm still doing that after, I don't know how many years it's been now, like 15 years or so. But yeah, a little bit of everything with the grappling.
So you started out with judo at 12 years old. How did that lead into wrestling?
So in high school, my junior year, I think I walked by the wrestling room, and obviously I knew what wrestling was, but I didn't really consider it before that. And then I just kind of watched what they were doing, and I was like, well, this is very similar to what we do in judo. Why not give that a try? And I picked it up fairly quick. Obviously, it's a little bit different. There's nothing to grab in wrestling. Like, there's no uniforms to grab, but I transitioned fairly well, and I utilized a lot of my judo skills to, get different takedowns and stuff, because I was never really the best at like double legs and single legs and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And where was this high school? And roughly how big is it?
I grew up in Eugene, Oregon. So I went to South Eugene High School. It was a fairly good sized high school. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. Yeah, it was we had a pretty tough district that we were in, and about I think 9 or 10 schools, other high schools.
What weight class were you junior year? What weight class were you senior year?
I believe my junior year, I was 142. I think that's what it was. In my senior year, I went to, I think, 150, 151, whatever it was. Could be off in those numbers, but sounds about right.
And at the high school age, were you already competing nationally at the judo level?
Yeah, I was doing junior nationals and senior nationals during that time, so I was doing both, so it was good cross-training. So I was definitely very busy at that time. And
did your classmates, as well as your wrestling coach, your freshman and sophomore year, know that you were into judo as much as you were?
Maybe a little bit. I wasn't, when that age, I wasn't really, I guess too outgoing with other people and letting them know exactly what I did. But, a few people obviously knew what I did.
Awesome. And we can get into the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA as we go in chronological order here. What drew you to judo? Why did it appeal to you? Who introduced it to you? Why did you like it?
So my father he grew up in Chicago, and there was when he was younger, I think in his 20s, he found the judo school and was training judo there. And then when I was 2 years old, we moved out to Oregon. He wasn't really keen on raising a family in Southside Chicago. We went out to Oregon. I grew up there, and then when I was 12, we found a school that they wanted to take me to, and it was a Korean instructor, Master Fong, I started doing judo at 12, and then he got back into it a little bit after I had started again. So it was good to have him on the map in my earlier years.
Did you train with the Cohens?
My dad?
Yes.
I think it was that school. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Uptown. I think it was their school. I could be wrong.
I think Doug Tono is in Chicago too, if I remember.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Doug Tono that his school.
I sent you just a brief description of my background, but I'm a judo black belt as well, but I never competed at any senior nationals or anything. A lot of local and Midwestern type tournaments, no point level. I got my black belt 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. Interesting story.
Nice.
I've been training for a while. I actually started in 1999 or 2000. Maybe it was 2000. And trained for a while, kind of on and off. Went back and forth between coaching wrestling and having interest and losing interest and having time and not making time and things like that. And I had my brown belt for a long time. And the club that I was training with, it was a surprise the night that they gave me the black belt. I had no clue. And in my eyes, in my mind, in a sense, I didn't feel like I deserved it in a way, because it was a big step, right? And I got kind of emotional. The next practice, I had my black belt and I tore my MCL in my first black belt practice.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So I guess it's kind of my personality, but I thought I had something to prove, maybe. And I'm, in my 30s, mid-30s, I'm like, yeah, I got something to prove. And then I blew my MCL out.
Where'd you get your black belt from?
In Peoria, Illinois. My sensei's name is George Weir, and he's been around for a long time. Right now I live in North Carolina, and when I do train judo, it's with Dana Rucker, if you know that name. But
I think I know your Weir. I believe that name sounds familiar.
He's been around for a long time, but I think he's worked at the Olympic Training Center a little bit. I don't know. He wasn't a coach, but I think, he spent some time out there working with athletes over the years.
Maybe he was there during my stay when I was there a long time ago. Awesome.
What accomplishments do you have in judo?
First couple years in judo, I was local competitions and stuff. Nothing too serious. But my goal was to make the Olympic team or try out for the Olympic team when I was older and had obviously more experience. So, I won. I didn't win a lot of junior nationals championships. I think I won one, and then some silver medals and bronze and stuff in junior nationals. And then at senior nationals, I won a few. I think I won 4 senior nationals and some silvers and some bronzes. A couple Pan Am championships, bronze medals, and Pan Am Games bronze medal. And then I made the Olympic team, which was, obviously the ultimate goal in 2004. And I took 9th. I went 2-2 at the Athens Olympics. And it was, for me, that was pretty amazing because I wasn't really expecting to do that well. I wasn't a super competitive person on the world scene. Wasn't a world beater. But for me to finish 2-2 at the Olympics was awesome in my eyes. And so I was happy with that.
100%. There's how many people on the planet now? 7 trillion, and you were only one person from the whole United States competing at which weight class did you compete?
I was 81 kilos.
Yeah, one person out of 7 trillion that went to the Olympics and won 2 matches. That's an outstanding accomplishment. You should be very proud of yourself.
Yeah, no, it was exciting. Plus, it was in Athens too, so to go back to have the Olympics there, and it was amazing. It was really, really amazing experience.
And you were on a team with Rousey?
Yep, so Ronda Rousey was on the team, and then Jimmy Pedro as well was on the team.
Was that whenever he kind of had come back and was competing again? Because I think he had taken a little bit of a hiatus, right?
Yeah, so after the 2000 Olympics, he retired. I believe he retired, or just he stopped competing for a couple years. So he started to come back, I think, in 2003 to kind of prep for 2004. So, yeah, that was his comeback Olympics. And, he had a crazy day. I think he had 7 or 8 matches and ended up taking a bronze. It was pretty incredible.
It's interesting, too, because Ronda Rousey, I knew of before because I've been in judo for a long time. She's been known in the judo community as one of the top female athletes from America. And really the world didn't start finding out about her till her MMA debut. Did she get into MMA before you or at the same time?
A little bit afterwards. Yeah, so when she was out here living, well, we were both out here training in Boston with Jimmy Pedro. After the Olympics in '04, I went home to Oregon for a year, and then the following year I wanted to try out for the '08, so I moved out to Boston to train with Jimmy. And then Ronda Rousey, I think, came about the same time. We all lived in the same house together, called the Judo house, and everyone was, the team was training for the '08 Olympics. And I didn't make the '08, so immediately I retired, and then I wanted to try MMA, and I think Ronda Rousey competed till 2008, and I retired from judo, and then she started doing the fighting thing as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I rooted for her big time. I was out in Arizona. I had moved from Illinois to Arizona for a teaching job. I'm a teacher, and I couldn't find anything in Illinois at the time. And I went out there, and I was training with the Rivera brothers out there and competing in California, which was definitely at another level than it was in the Midwest. And Ronda Rousey was very popular at that time, and we went out and watched a couple of her events out after practice, have a couple drinks, some food, and watch the UFC.
She did pretty amazing during her stint in the UFC.
How would you describe your judo style, personally?
So it was, I would call it more of maybe a European style, as opposed to a traditional Japanese style where, you're more stand upright and have very, Japanese have very technical, pretty techniques. I wasn't super technical. So it was more like a scrappy type of style, fireman carries and Seinagi's and drop Seinagi's and things like that. I never developed a good Uchimata or Hirogoshi or anything like that. So I wish I could. I just didn't really fit, my style and my game. So I was just kind of more of a wrestling kind of rougher style, not as pretty. But it worked. It got the job done most of the time.
Absolutely. Yes. So let's talk about, I don't know, we'll say maybe 6 months or a year leading up to that Olympics. How intense were you training? Can you tell us how many times per week you were training, some things you were doing, if you were traveling and competing, traveling to different clubs leading up to the Olympics in 2004?
Right. So I was, at the time, living in Colorado at the Olympic Training Center. And I had been there since I graduated high school in '96. So after high school, that fall, I moved out to Colorado Springs. And, my goal was to try for the 2000 team. I didn't make that team. I just wasn't experienced enough yet. And then so I set my sight 4 years later for the '04. So during those 4 years, that quad is you're looking to gain points, right? You're looking to be the number one ranked person in your division. For when Olympic trials comes, you have a better chance of making the team. And every 4 years, they kind of change how people made the team. Sometimes they had Olympic trials. I think in 2000, it was just whoever had the most points in that division got to go to the team, and there was no Olympic trials, so it kind of changed every now and again. In my quad, or my 4 years, you had to be in the top six. Yeah, top six for men in the Pan Am Union, the Pan Am countries. So you had to be top six in points, and then you had to be top five in the Pan Am Union, and then top six Americans would go to the Olympic trials. And if you were the number one seed in the Olympic trials, you had, obviously the best chance. You had to be beaten twice or three times before to not make the team. So the 6 months before, a year before, I'm trying to, you're trying to get as many points as you can. Also, there's different levels of points. So the A level would be the European, the Paris Open or some of those big tournaments, the high level world class tournaments. You medal in those, and you're basically guaranteed to make the Olympic team, or at least be the number one seed going into the trials. So the December before the 2004 started, December 2003, we went to Korea, and they had the Korea Cup there. And at that time, it was an A-level tournament. And I ended up getting a bronze medal, which gave me that A-level status. So no one else in my division at the time had A-level. So even if I only had 1 point, they had 100 points, but they're a B level, that my A level would be ahead of theirs, or it would mean more. So going into the Olympic trials, I was just trying to stay healthy, get as much training as I could. We travel different places and different clubs and try to peak as best we could for the before the trials. We're doing our running or lifting a few times a week, and obviously probably training 2 or 3 times a day.
I had Ryan Reeser on one of my earlier episodes, which I told him that I was going to, try to get you on the podcast. So he says hello, and he says that you're a great guy. I actually ran into him at a camp this summer that we held out here. It was Ryan Reeser and Lynn
Rothke?
Yes. So she was a silver medalist, if I'm not mistaken. She was out there, and Ryan Reeser was there, and it was an awesome camp, and our club put it on. It's been going on for a long time. It's actually titled the greatest camp on earth. So
yes, I've heard of that one. Yep.
Yeah. So it drew people in from, I would say about cut the U.S. in half, draw a line down the middle. That drew, people from various states, mostly on the East Coast and things like that. But it was awesome. I don't compete anymore. I turned 40 this year. So yeah, after the first day of being on the mat for about 8 hours, it was tough to get out of bed the next day. So
that does sound like a lot.
Especially after Reeser hit me with about 3 or 4 fireman's carries, so that that wasn't fun. So
yeah, his judo game was awesome. Like, I love training with Brian. Like, at the time though, he was so good and talented and young, and he would kind of beat me up. But it was good training. He was a good dude, good teammate, and all those guys. During that time, it was awesome. We had some really good talent. The team that we had back then, there were some killers.
Yeah, I believe he's coming back to the camp again this summer, and also Colton Brown is the premier guest this year. This last summer it was, I cannot remember, it's a Korean gold medalist, is Jeon something. He's like the president of the USJA. He was really good.
Colton's very good as well. We used to train with him when he was training at Jimmy's for, I think, a couple years. Big, strong, explosive fighter.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely going next year again. I live in Charlotte now, and it's in Charlotte, so it was great. So walk us through a little bit of that Olympic experience. Can you tell us, once you landed, kind of how things went? Maybe if you have an interesting story.
Definitely. So obviously the Olympics is a huge international event. I don't know how many, I think there's like 10,000 athletes total there during that time. And it's about 3 weeks to a month long. So we get out there, I think about a week or 2 weeks before it started, just to acclimate and go through just processing and kind of just figure things out. Obviously it was I think it was in August, so Greece is pretty hot in August, very humid. First thing is you go through and you get all your gear, your equipment, right? And it's pretty cool because they give you like a shopping basket or 2 shopping baskets, and you walk down this line with your team, and you just go and you get all your Olympic apparel and bags and stuff like that. And most of the years, it's like only sponsored by like one company, say like Nike or something like that, does all the apparel. When we went, it was sponsored by Adidas and Roots, which is like Canadian, I think, brand. So we like doubled the apparel, which is pretty cool. And so you're just walking down every table, and you're just getting your size of like outfits. Like you have all your medal podium outfit, you have your opening ceremonies outfit, you have the closing ceremonies outfit, and all kinds of other stuff. And you're just dumping stuff in your basket, and you have all your gear. So that's pretty cool. And then we're doing our training. We're doing training off-site. I think there was a university or something. We were doing our training. So obviously, the wrestlers were there too, and we were training up wrestling mat. Everyone had their certain times of the day that the teams could go there and train. And it was interesting too, because during that time politically, the U.S. was, during, I think, it was 2004, so it wasn't, there was the wars going on and stuff like that. So everywhere that we went, we would go on a bus, and we had armed security guard us. So that was a little interesting, but it was definitely, felt good to have that. And so we just got ready. We did a little sightseeing, not too much sightseeing, but like you go downtown Athens and stuff before the Olympics started. Got to see stuff, and there's different USA related houses, like the Bank of America house or like the USA house, where you could go there and you could get free food, being an American athlete, or free alcohol, free drinks after your event, obviously. You go hang out, and then you go downtown and sightsee and just check it out. So it's very cool. So, like I said, the Olympics are about a month, 3 weeks to a month, and depending on the sport, you may start the first day or you may be like the last day or the last week. So thankfully for judo, we started on day one. So we had the open ceremonies, and some athletes who competed the next day didn't want to do the opening ceremony just because that's like an 8-hour process. I think like Jimmy Pedro opted out to not to go to the opening ceremonies because he was fighting the next day, I believe, or 2 days after, and you're just standing around basically for 8 hours. It's very tiring. But it was very cool. I'm happy I went and did it. They shuttle you, all the athletes, from the Olympic Village. They pick you up in huge buses, and you get transferred over to where the Olympic Park is, and they put you up in this huge stadium outside of the Olympic Stadium next to it, and they just call you out by country one by one. That was an incredible experience. Just, when you're walking through the tunnels and you come out in the Olympic Stadium, I think there's like 80,000 people there, and it was full. It was just incredible seeing the amount of people, and you're just walking all the U.S. athletes around the track, and then you end up kind of lining up in the middle of the field. Yeah, it was awesome. I did have a camcorder with me, so I do have it on video. So I had one hand I had a camera, the other hand I had my camcorder, and I was filming that. So I do have those memories on tape. Yeah, it was amazing.
What about, besides the armed guards taking you around everywhere, can you think of anything that you did outside of the mat, maybe after you guys got done competing? Is Athens, does that have any of the ancient Greece monuments?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I competed, I think it was day 3 or 4. And my parents had come out to watch, and so after I competed, I was like, all right, well, obviously we went and supported our teammates who were fighting the day after and stuff like that. And then we got to, go sightsee and stuff. So my parents and a few other my teammates, I think we went to to go see the Parthenon. That's, on Mount Acropolis, the big, most common or most well-known building or artifact. And that was really cool. I think it was under construction. They were kind of fixing it up at the time. But I got some really awesome photos of walking through that, kind of seeing all those ancient ruins, and they're all over the place. Like you'll see them on the side of a mountain, or in a valley. You'll see all these ancient old buildings that are just thousands of years old. It was really cool. Yeah, so we during I wanted to stay the whole time. I wanted to experience it. So for 3.5 weeks or whatever, I stayed in my team and my roommate Taraji Williams. We went and we saw other events. We went to, sightsee, and then a few of our teammates went to an island for a night or two. I think it was called Mykonos, which is like a touristy island. Took a ferry there and hung out for a couple nights, and it was cool. It was really, really fun experience, and got to experience just the local food, which is amazing. And didn't get to see a lot of Greece, obviously, because my budget was limited during that time. But I got to see enough, and it was just really, really cool to kind of just experience the whole thing and the whole time there. And the coolest thing I thought was, so Sports Illustrated, the Sports Illustrated, the magazine.
Yes.
They had a party that they held, I think 3 or 4 parties during the Olympics, and it was open to all USA athletes, and it was free as long as you're a USA athlete. And so it was that a nightclub that was on the ocean. It was all open air outside. And they would have tables upon tables of sushi, lobster, just all this high-end food. And it was all just free.
Nice.
As much as you want, you just go there, eat it. All the drinks all night were free, top shelf, everything. I mean, all the athletes were there, Michael Phelps, and all the famous athletes would go to these events. And they would go till sunrise, and then you take the bus shuttle back to the Olympic Village and sleep for the day. For most of the day and try to recover, but it was a really, really fun event. I went to I think went to 2 of those parties. It was just so cool because you'd just be walking around with the most famous athletes in the country.
That's cool. I love these little personal stories of things that you don't hear on the news or little personal stories. Well, very good. Awesome. So, taking a step back, you started wrestling junior year. Did you make the varsity team and get a spot on the lineup the first year?
I did. We didn't have the strongest team, but I had never wrestled before, obviously, but I picked it up fairly quick, and I did make varsity. Yeah, I had some good success, decent success my junior year, at tournaments and stuff like that. Made it to districts, and I think I was like the 4th or 5th seed. I was a nobody. No one knew who I was. And I ended up winning districts my junior year. Beat these guys who had no clue who I was from previous years. So that was pretty cool to win districts my junior year. And then senior year, obviously, I got a little bit bigger, got better. I won a lot of, not a lot, but several of the bigger tournaments locally in that region. Some really tough tournaments, had some tough matches. I ended up winning districts again my senior year, which was against one of the best high schools in the region. It was called Marshfield High School, and some really tough wrestlers there. Their logo was the skull and crossbones. that was their high school emblem. So it was the Pirates. So it was pretty intense. It was fun. And then I made it to states. Mm-hmm.
Did you make it to state both years?
Just my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I made it only my senior year, and I did pretty well. I mean, I made it to the 3rd day, and I was just kind of getting just burnt out and tired because you had to make weight every single day, and you had some tough matches, and it was kind of a little disappointing because my last match in wrestling my senior year, I'd never been pinned the 2 years that I wrestled.
Wow.
Until my last match at state. I was a senior. I was going against a sophomore who was just this kid, and he ended up pinning me. My last match in wrestling, I got pinned.
Were you training judo at the same time?
A little bit, yeah. Obviously, during wrestling season, I wasn't doing as much because of you really can't because of the schedule of wrestling. It's like every day.
Did you ever consider wrestling in college?
No, I wasn't really good. I wasn't good enough for that, and I only did it just because I could do well in high school. I was like, oh, it's kind of like judo. I mean, that's what I did. I was like, I picked it up. I could do that. That's, and I had some decent success, but I wasn't really like a really good wrestler. And the Olympic and all that was my main goal in judo was to try to do that.
And you had that aspirations to go to the Olympics at what age?
I think I started when 12, so like a year or two maybe after I started. I don't know, we watched the Olympics. I think it was on TV. So I started in the 88, so maybe it was the 88 Olympics even that we was on TV. And they had judo in the Olympics. So I was like, oh, cool. That seemed like a cool goal to have. And I wasn't really interested in like team sports in high school and stuff like that or growing up. So it was more like the individual stuff. So that kind of just what drew me to that.
How would you compare judo to wrestling?
It's similar in terms of, obviously it's one-on-one. So you're out there. You don't have a team helping you out. Obviously, you have your coaches, but it's up to you to get the job done. And so it's similar in the aspects of that, except for obviously the rules and stuff like that. But mindset, to me, I think it's very similar.
And then at this point, whenever you were competing in judo, you were still allowed to attack the legs, right?
Yeah, thankfully for me, because I didn't have that pretty technique. It's fireman's carries and leg picks and ankle picks. That was kind of like my game.
Yeah, so then you said that you had kind of a grindy style, so that would definitely translate to wrestling. And then giving the aspect they're still allowing the leg attacks, wrestling must have helped you get ready for judo.
It did. I think like the fireman's carry was like something I took from wrestling to judo because I don't think I was doing that before I wrestled. So that I think was something maybe helped in that aspect. And maybe just the grittiness you have to be to wrestle. I think that carries over and helps when you're doing judo. And I think wrestlers are some of the toughest people on earth, so they have to be if you want to be a good wrestler. So I think that if you can have that mental toughness and that grittiness and understand the grind, it helps in pretty much anything you do, especially judo.
Yeah, it was the same way. I started out in judo first. I got interested really late. The schools that I went to did not have wrestling, and I tried to get into wrestling, and, it's a long process to have schools co-op or, get the paperwork that you need, and you only got one kid, so it didn't work out wrestling-wise, but I wanted to grapple. And my friend's cousin was a state champion in Illinois, a 3-time state champion and Division I wrestler, and a judo black belt. And he's said, come try judo. I'm like, all right, I didn't really know what it was.
Right.
And I enjoyed it and loved it. And once, because I had always been wrestling around and boxing and fighting all my friends, for fun, throwing each other off the trampolines and all that kind of stuff. And I was used to and played sports when I was younger. But once I started grappling, you get that one-on-one, that combat, that sense of, it's hard to describe, but once you get a hold of somebody, you can fall in love with it pretty quick, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
As we're going through here, so you graduated high school, you were a resident athlete at the Olympic Training Center, you said?
Yeah, so during that time, you had to qualify to be considered to go there. It was a scholarship.
Mm-hmm. How many years were you there?
I was there 8 years.
Wow. So you said that you tried on the first cycle, the 2000 Olympics. You fell a little short of your goal. At that time, what was your mindset? Was it, my gosh, I've spent 10 years trying to make it to the Olympics. Am I burnt out? Am I done? Or did you have a hunger saying, you know what, I am going to make these next Olympics? What's some stuff that's going through your head around that 2000, 2001 year?
I wasn't burnt out. I was still young, and I was a little angry. There's politics involved with judo and at that level, so I'm not saying I would have made it, but, we had some athletes came back out of retirement. They kind of got the nod, so it was kind of like, in certain areas, so there's some politics involved, so it just made me kind of angry. I'm like, I'm definitely making the next team, so it really drove me to push myself even harder. I had 4 years to get better and make sure that it was going to be me that made it this time.
And how old were you in 2004 for the Olympics?
I was 27.
And that's actually a little bit later. The quote-unquote prime for grapplers and things like that, especially for the lighter weight guys, middleweight guys, is a little bit younger. So as you go through the process, you get to the Olympics. Was your mindset the whole time gold? All I want is gold. Is that what you were thinking those years training for it, or you just wanted to go?
Well, considering I wasn't like a world medalist, or I wasn't placing or medaling in like some of the A-list tournaments and stuff like that, so my goal really was just to make the team. I obviously wanted to do well. Obviously, I'm not saying I didn't want a gold medal or to medal or be on the podium. Obviously, that's what I wanted, but you have to be realistic with what you have, right? So just making the team would be very tough in itself, and then if you can do well while you're there, obviously I think at the time there's 32 competitors at the Olympics. That was the max number that they had, so it was really just to make the team, do as well as I can leading up to Olympic trials, because the Olympic trials again is you see a lot of heartbreaks and stuff like that happen at the trials where if you don't win, you're not going. Your life's work up to that point is over. I told teammates it was depressing. It was sad. Your career is over after you spent the last 10, 15 years training for something. You don't make it. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, absolutely. And the majority of amateur sports, almost every event they have in the Olympics, there's really not a high-paying professional league that you can join.
Right.
Judo especially. I know from talking with various people and kind of learning about it, if you get asked to come to the Olympic Training Center and you're winning and things like that, you get a little bit of a stipend and you get, your food and your housing paid for and things like that, but you're not making enough money to raise a family.
No.
And there isn't a professional level for it. Wrestling, which I've been coaching for 15 years now, it's only recently that the athletes are finally able to make enough money to raised a family and things like that, the opening up of the regional training centers and endorsements and organizations kind of buying in to wrestling at the highest level, these athletes are actually starting to make money now. But I mean, you have all these other sports, right? There really isn't any money to be made in it. And people put all these lives, like you said, 10 years, 20 years into it. And then when they're done, if they don't reach their goal, what now, right?
And that's the thing, too, is you know, a lot of the sports is, the U.S. sports, you could get all your training done in the States. Like, you didn't have to travel. With Judo, you really, if you wanted to get good, you needed to travel, and all your tournaments were in Europe and Asia. So you had to, the more money that you could spend, the better you could get at Judo, basically. So I didn't grow up with money, and so I didn't get the best training that I could. I couldn't really afford to travel and do all these things, go these places that I needed to go. So, yeah, I mean, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout your training to make the Olympic team, and at the end of it, there's no money. Just it's pride, which is, to me, that's, you know, that's fine. You know, that's something that, you know, money can't buy, is making the team, or even if you medal, you know. So it's, it was tough, you know, and I think it's even worse the last, 8 years or so with Olympics. You had to spend way more money, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars per year with all the traveling you had to do to compete. Just the way they have it structured now, you have to, I think, be top 20 in the world, so you just have to compete everywhere, and it's definitely not cheap.
How tough are the Mongolians and the Georgians at Judo?
Very tough. You know, some of those countries, those Eastern European countries, are just, they're animals. They're just monsters. They're so strong, and they're so tough. I don't think I fought. I might have trained or fought with the Mongolian guys. The Georgians, yeah, they have definitely a unique style. The Georgians and the Russians and stuff like that, they have their own style. It's crazy. They have crazy stuff. More so when I competed, because you could grab the legs and do stuff like that. Yeah, there's this tough group over there in that part of the world.
And I was asking Ryan Reeser about that because in the last Olympics, the Georgians, man, they look so tough in the Olympics, and just about breaking people's will and just beating people up. Yep, judo's a gentle art, but these dudes aren't gentle. They are, clubbing you and elbowing you and in your face and being rough and just trying to break you mentally and physically. So I like that. So that's why I was so impressed by the Georgian team this last cycle.
Yeah, I think they were doing really well, especially I believe on the men's side.
Yes.
They were very, very strong.
As we're moving along here, well, quick question before we get into the MMA. I would assume probably that the majority of your interviews that you've had probably pertain more to the MMA side, correct?
Yeah, in the last few years, yeah. Judo interviews during my time weren't really a thing during my judo career, but yeah, I've had a few where, very similar to this one, where people guys are they want to get the whole background, and obviously I've had a few careers during my life, so it's cool to talk about that and kind of share it with people that don't know.
I'm way more interested, just personally, right? More interested in your judo and your wrestling career, more for the fact that I train judo and I'm a wrestling coach at a high school. Yeah. But we can dip into your MMA career a little bit. So you finished the Olympics. Who introduced you into MMA, or were you thinking about it at the time, or how did you end up transitioning into that?
So, the UFC, I think, started in 93, and my dad and I would watch it. We'd rent them, get the pay-per-view, and watch it, and Hoist Gracie was out there, and he was submitting people, and it was cool to us because we knew what he was doing, like the chokes and the takedowns and the arm bars and stuff like that, because it's all the same stuff we do in judo, right? Mm-hmm. So we'd be watching that, and we knew what was going on, but the commentators had no clue of what he was doing to these guys.
Sure.
And we're just yeah, he's going for an arm bar, he's going for a choke. It was cool in that aspect because, that's what we do. And then during that time, there was a few judo guys who did that early UFCs and stuff. Later on, UFC got more popular. One guy, Karo Parisian, he was one of the more famous judo guys in the UFC. And I had fought Caro a few times, growing up and stuff like that, and senior nationals, and I always beat him. He was tough, very, very tough kid. But in my mind, I was like, well, if Caro could do the UFC, why couldn't I do the UFC? That was my mindset. So I wasn't thinking about doing UFC at that time. I was like, I want to make the Olympic judo team. I want to finish that out. But I was like, oh, that's cool. The judo guy is doing well in UFC. And one day I told myself I would try, if I was still young enough and healthy enough, I would try to train MMA. And that was kind of my motivation, was kind of seeing him. I was like, well, if that judo guy could do it, I've seen other judo guys who do it. Why wouldn't I be able to do it, right? I think I can do that. So I didn't make the team in 2008. I moved out to Boston in 2005. So immediately right after I retired that summer in 2008, I found the best MMA school in my area. And I was like, all right, let's give this a go, and got right into it. And that was Sityodtong Tong, which is Mark Delagrade is the head coach for that.
Yep.
Muay Thai school, and, very, very well-known Muay Thai instructor. So I started doing my kickboxing training there and my striking and MMA. And I needed to learn jiu-jitsu, right? I knew guys who did jiu-jitsu throughout judo and stuff like that. I was never a big ground guy. I always wanted to just throw people in judo.
Me too. Yes.
And my dad was always a ground guy. He was better on the ground. He loved the ground aspect of judo. And I never really got into it. And I'm kicking myself nowadays because I wish I would have, when I was younger, focused on the ground as well. So I had to find a jiu-jitsu school locally and obviously train jiu-jitsu and wrestling and all that stuff. I had to put all that together with training MMA. And I think 6 months after I started training, I had my first fight. And it was against another person who had never fought before. And it was a pro fight because I couldn't get any amateur fights because no one wanted to fight me.
You went right into pro. Your first fight was a pro fight. Yeah,
but the other guy was also a 0-0.
Okay.
So technically it didn't make a difference, but it counted, so it was on your record if you lost. So, I think I won that in a couple minutes, got his back, and kind of flattened him out and just pounded him out.
Could you share the purse for that? Your first paycheck as a professional mixed martial artist win?
It was like $600. It was like 300 and 300, something like that.
So after you got that, you're like, I'm retired, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
No.
We're gonna buy a fast car and we're coming.
For $600, maybe one that doesn't have an engine in it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of ironic because my truck at the time, I had Durango that I drove out to Boston with. The way back from weigh-ins from my first fight, it died on the freeway.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I had to get picked up by my landlord and stuff like that. So, that was kind of a bad situation.
The life of a professional athlete, if these kids only knew, right? It's like they see the millionaire NBA players and NFL players, in their lifestyle, but the majority of professional athletes, it's not like that.
Yeah.
So as you're going through, I know Mark Delagrade, that name's been around for a long time. Who are some of the really good dudes that came out of that school?
So, we had a lot of, good fighters that trained out. Kenny Florian was one of the main guys. Patrick Cote, Stephan Bonner would come every now and again. Tim Sylvia was there one time. A lot of, I know I'm missing a lot of, currently, Rob Blunt, who's in the UFC, him and I kind of started training at the same time. He was a little bit, obviously, younger than me, but we started at the same time. Yeah, so there was a ton of good names that came through there, and I know I'm missing a bunch, but we had some good guys back in the day. It was just Marcus Davis. Training was tough. It was hard.
Up to that point, have you ever been involved in any sort of striking martial art previously?
No, so I had been in a couple scuffles or bar fights and stuff like that, but sure. I had no clue what I was doing. And I was a righty in judo my whole career, right foot forward. But I am right-handed, so I was orthodox boxer.
Sure.
So standing left was kind of weird to me when I first started. I just felt it just felt weird, right? Because you're standing the opposite way. That took a little bit to get used to striking, because obviously I'd never thrown punches, kicks, and stuff like that. And it was a new world. It was, but it was cool to learn something new after so many years of judo. To have a new sport I understood body mechanics. I understood my body and stuff, so I picked it up fairly quick.
Cool. So one of your best highlight reels, probably everybody's honest, highlight reels of you, of course, is that Seanaki against Maynard. Talk us through that a little bit. Are you the type of person that remembers things that happen in matches like that, or is it just blank, don't remember, you just did it, you watched the video and you're like, oh, cool, I did that, I didn't know?
It depends. I mean, in some fights, you be in that kind of like Zen-like state where you're just kind of like your body's just reacting, and you don't really remember it. It's just kind of and that was one of those cases where my body just reacted to the feeling of what was going on. Like, I didn't think about it. It happened so quick that I wasn't like, oh, Sayanagi. It's just he ended up being my back, and I'm like, oh, I know this. My body knew what to do, and it just automatically went to that. Like, I don't think I ever trained. I wasn't training that specific throw and no-gi and stuff like that. Maybe I was, just because obviously that was one of my better throws as a left side Sayanagi. But it just happened. It was crazy how it happened and the finish, and then it was just like a viral sensation.
Yeah. Whole fight lasted a minute, 90 seconds. It was a pretty quick finish for you.
Yeah, no, it was cool because it was on YouTube, I think, the next day, and we just kept watching, like, how many people were watching it. It's like 300,000 people saw this. So it was kind of like, I guess, my claim to fame or something in the MMA world. It was cool. It was a cool feeling.
Who was your first organization you were part of as far as the professional MMA?
Well, that was a local show. There's, several local shows usually in your region, and this was, I think, called like CageFX or CFX or something like that. They're no longer around. A lot of these local shows, they don't really last. So they were one of the bigger ones at the time, and then there was another show called WCF, which actually they're still around. Actually, that was my last fight. I fought 6 months ago. I fought for them. I had 2 fights earlier on in my career, and then I fought for them again 6 months ago. And
then when did Bellator kind of come around for you?
That Maynard fight was my first Bellator fight. I think at that point I was 8-0 locally. I beat the number 1 guy. I beat Shoney Carter, and we were trying to get in the UFC, so we're talking with my manager at the time was Jimmy Pedro. He was managing me. So he was talking with the matchmaker, and at the time, the criteria to make the UFC was kind of tough. You needed to be like 12-0 and had fought really good guys, good records. And I was at 170 at the time, and it was just the most stacked division. So he's like, not yet, we don't have anything for you. Hold on, you're on the radar, just kind of keep plugging away. So I got the opportunity with Bellator. There's like, we're doing a $100,000 tournament, 8-man tournament. Just take a fight, win a fight, and then you'll be in the tournament. So I was like, do I wait for the UFC or do I try to go win $100,000? And my thought process was, I was 32 or 33 years old at the time, and Jimmy was correct. He's like, you're older, you're not looking to be like a UFC champion, $1 million fighter. Like, go in into fighting and make as much money as you can, and then just see where you go with it. And I had the same thought process. I was like, yeah, I just want to go and just make a little bit of money and see what I can do and test myself. That was really the whole idea of me doing it, was just could I actually do it, and how good could I be? And I ended up being better than I think people expected me to be, or going farther than people expected me to do, especially at my age, starting at 32. And it's just kind of like, I just picked it up, and it was the right timing, and I won that Maynard fight. I went into the tournament, the 8-man tournament, and I ended up taking second. Kind of a controversial loss in the finals. And a couple of years, I had some good success during those years with Bellator.
You had a belt in Bellator, correct?
No, I fought for the belt twice.
Okay.
So I fought that first tournament at 170. I took second. And at that time, I think it was like 2011, I decided I wanted to leave the Boston area and kind of find a new school. There was no one at the school I was at, Sigatong, that could, I was the biggest guy there. All the other people were like smaller. I wasn't being pushed. All the big names had left. I wasn't being pushed. So I spoke with Kenny Florian, and he had actually moved up would train at the TriStar with George St. Pierre and those guys.
Yeah, up in Canada.
Yeah. And so I had a connection not only with him, but also a friend of mine from the Henzo Gracie Academy in New York City. He had a connection to Faraz up there, and he suggested that I go up there. And I was like, all right, I'm going to see how that works. So I went up to Montreal, and they had a dormitory there, and right on campus, right in the same building as TriStar, and probably the best decision I ever made, because the training up there was just insane. I mean, you're training with George St. Pierre and William McDonald, and throughout the years, so many big-name fighters were through those doors, and it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, they cycle through. I know that you said that you have limited time, so we can move into where you are these days. PMA, is that your gym?
So, yeah, Professional Martial Arts Academy. I own the Plastow location. I run it. I'm partners with Tim Marshard. PMA is his school, his name, but we're 50-50 partners in the Plastow school. And I run it. I've ran it for the last 7 years. I teach a little bit of everything. So primarily the PMA is a karate school. So we teach kids karate, obviously judo, Muay Thai, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I teach all of those.
Before you said that you did not have any striking experience. So did you get into karate during MMA?
Yeah, so I had to learn karate to open up a school. I got my black belt in karate and stuff. So yeah, I had to learn that because that was kind of the majority of our student base was karate.
So you have a black belt in judo, jiu-jitsu, and karate.
And technically Muay Thai, even though they don't do belts, but it would be like a black belt level, yes.
What title sounds best to you? Sensei Hawn, Professor Hawn, Master Hawn? What sounds best for you?
I usually just go with Sensei. That's kind of the traditional judo, Jiu-Jitsu obviously is professor and stuff like that. So some people will call me professor, but, I don't correct them and say, call me this instead. I'm not too critical of, what they call me.
I think professor is kind of a strange title, personally. I'm sure it comes from probably a translation out of Portuguese. A little bit about the jiu-jitsu. So, my story, very similar to you, what you said earlier. Stayed off the mat a lot. I just wanted to throw people. Same for me. I also had a Korean coach, a Korean sensei for a while as well in college, because I competed in college in judo, and we really rarely ever practice anything on the ground, Yeah. And I don't know how many years ago, you do some groundwork in judo, right? But yeah. I always wanted to stand, and I got into jiu-jitsu a little bit the last couple of years, just kind of hit and miss. And it took me a little bit of time to get used to it. And me in my head, I'm thinking, I'm a judo black belt and a wrestling coach, and I'm getting submitted by white belts, and it's just like, dude, it's like a little bit of a
learning curve. It's a little different, yeah.
It is. And I'm trying to match the style. I'm trying to go in, because at any point, can I just get away and stand up to my feet? Pretty much, right? But I don't want to, I want to learn. And I'm fine with getting submitted and things, but it's just I just think I go back into the locker room to change, and I put my white belt into my bag, and I see my judo black belt in there, and I'm, oh my gosh, man, I'm getting submitted, and I'm a judo black belt, but it is what it is. But on the feet, even at 40, even the younger guys, have a lot of trouble taking me down. And they're always asking me about stuff on the feet, which is cool. But it's different. It's very different. And I'm trying to learn it. They were telling me that potentially this summer up for a blue belt in it. So
no, it's true. I didn't really start working ground stuff in judo until I moved out to Boston. Jimmy Pedro was notoriously very good on the ground, but yeah, you're right. When I started doing jiu-jitsu, it's different because you used to turtling up in judo a lot, which is the worst thing you can do in jiu-jitsu because you're giving your back. So yeah, I had the same. I picked it up fairly quick, but yeah, there is that learning curve where you're don't give up, but you keep your back on the ground, which is kind of the opposite of judo and wrestling.
So what's it like as far as your life now, being a gym owner and a coach full time? How does your day-to-day business go? What's kind of your mindset right now? What are some of your responsibilities?
Yeah, so I'm teaching full time, so that takes up, that's weird hours for that, right? So some days are in the morning and evening, other days are just the evening. But if I'm trying to get back in shape, I'm actually decided I'm going to take a fight. I think another MMA fight in end of June. I kind of decided yesterday because it was the first day of training camp. Yeah, so I've got to balance that. And like I said earlier, I fought in October. I came back after 6 years of being retired from MMA and did an MMA fight. So it was cool to just get back into that grind again, how I used to do it, which I've done my whole life with judo and MMA and just that mindset of just training again. Mm-hmm. So definitely a balance between, I couldn't train the same as before I had the school, right? Because I got to teach the classes, and you're running the business and the day-to-day stuff. And so, yeah, there's not a lot of time to get training in that I want. And then, obviously, I'm older, so
Sure.
I'll be 47 this summer. So that takes a toll, as you know. Once you hit 40, the warranty runs out.
Sure.
I had a hip replacement 2.5, 3 years ago, so hip's doing great, which has allowed me to train full-time as hard as I want. That's helpful.
Was your goal to open up a gym once you started training and you finished the Olympics and all that stuff? Was that one of your end goals?
No, so that wasn't one of my goals. Not so much maybe after judo, because, you know, during that time, you're like, you really can't make any money running a judo school. But it was after MMA where I learned several other arts now, and that was kind of the goal. You can't keep fighting, you know. So that was the goal. It was to open up a school after MMA, and my partner, you know, after one of my fights, he's like, hey, why don't we go in business together and be partners? And, you know, and that kind of just worked out that way, because he was my coach as well. So yeah, it was good timing, and it worked out. We trained and prepped for several years, so I had to learn karate. I learned how to teach in their system, and, you know, like 3 years later, we opened up my school.
Describe your coaching style.
I think I'm a little more like old school, because, you know, having like a Korean instructor I'm not like saying very like rigid and like rough and yell at some of the judo instructors that I had in the past, you know, Jim Pedro Sr. and stuff, he's very stern and he'll tell you like it is.
Uh-huh.
So these days you can't be that aggressive or vocal with clients or students. It won't go over well. You know, I'm patient and understanding, and, you know, obviously I try to push people to be their best that they can be.
What sort of mentality do you teach your students?
It depends. I mean, the main thing is just building confidence with I think, children and adults. And it's just, you know, showing them what they're capable of, what they may not realize how capable they are and what they can do with their body and their training. And it's super rewarding and satisfying to kind of see them when they do realize that, or you see them have that success or that, you know, that awakening or aha moment. So that's a really cool feeling to have, and that's what I really enjoy about teaching.
What age group do you like to teach the most?
Hi, 8, 9, 10-year-olds.
Because I've been in the school system. I'm a teacher. This is my 12th year, I think, teaching. And I've taught every grade level. So the 8, 9, 10-year-olds, they're old enough to where you can joke with them. They understand things. They're still kids, but the hormones and attitude type change has not come yet. I taught middle school, and I like coaching it, but I don't like teaching it. Out of all the martial arts, and we'll throw wrestling in there too, which one do you like the most? And it can be in any aspect. It could be one, and we can include MMA in there too. Which one do you personally like the best, and why?
I think right now jiu-jitsu is kind of like what I do the most. Obviously, judo was my first art. I can thank and credit judo for giving me the opportunity that I have now is learning all these other arts and meeting all these other coaches and having that experience. But jiu-jitsu is kind of like, I think, my favorite that I do now, because judo is so hard on the body, as you know, and I don't really train judo anymore. But jiu-jitsu is, you know, I can do that pretty much all day just because it's not as taxing or painful.
Sure. A short story about myself. So again, I'm 40. We were wrapping up the wrestling season, so this is probably somewhere around February. And last summer, I trained a lot of jiu-jitsu, probably 3, 4, 5 days a week, because one of my wrestlers, his mom owns a jiu-jitsu gym. So his first sport is jiu-jitsu, but he's really come a long way in wrestling and was actually one match away from making it to state this year, and he's a sophomore. So very good kid. So it had been about 10 years since I had competed. So I decided, you know, I think I'm gonna compete again this year in jiu-jitsu and maybe some judo. And I start cutting weight. Well, not cutting weight the healthy way. So I was about close to 180. I wanted to be 170 or below. So, you know, I had started changing a little things about my diet. And then my heavyweight, I just say this to make people laugh, but he swept my leg like Johnny in The Karate Kid. And my knee still hurts. It's probably some sort of tear in there, but I've been dealing with it. And there's a judo tournament coming up in a couple weeks. and I start going back to judo and got thrown, between my ear and my shoulder and then hurt my shoulder and just, so I was going to compete and then I had to take a step back. But like you were saying, judo's rough, man. And like I tell people this about when they compare how rough wrestling and how rough judo is on the body. The majority of wrestling takedowns, you fall from about your waist down to the ground. So it's only about a foot or two, the majority of the takedowns in wrestling. Yeah. Judo, on the other hand, you're about 4 to 5 feet in the air for a lot of the takedowns, a lot of the throws. So you just simple basic physics, right?
Yeah.
You had three more feet of descent, you're going to hit the ground a lot harder.
With more snap and more explosiveness too. Funny story is when I retired from judo and started MMA, like my fingers, my joints were just like couldn't even hold a coffee cup some days because everything just hurt from all the grip fighting and all that stuff, and your ligaments and the joints are just so banged up. So when I started MMA, it was easy. Like I would tell people, like MMA was way easier on my body than judo ever was.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're not gripping and pulling and having your joints ripped and stuff like that. Like, yes, you're getting punched and kicked in the face and stuff, but that's more surface than like deep down joint pain and knee pain and stuff like that. So
sure.
It's always funny. I was like, yeah, MMA is way easier on my body than judo ever was.
Yeah, actually, that injury from my wrestler, that was my first sport-related injury that was outside of judo. All the other ones have all been from judo. I haven't had anything major. Rolled both of my ankles probably 3-4 times each. Torn oblique, partially torn rotator cuff, neck pain and numbness that I still kind of have to this day. But, that's about the extent of it. Probably a broken finger or two because, I don't go to the doctor over it, but, I've had to where my finger feels like I'm getting stabbed when I grab it for months on end. So I'm sure I probably have had a broken finger or two, but...
Oh, yeah. Comes with the territory, right? Grip fighting.
Right. Well, cool. So as we wrap it up here, how has grappling changed and influenced your life, Rick Hawn?
Well, it's really opened a lot of doors in terms of where I'm at now and what I offer people. So judo, wrestling obviously was first, and then judo, and then wrestling, and the judo really opened up the doors for me to get the grappling and learn the new grappling arts and stuff like that. So it's just very cool to be able to continue doing what I've done for how long it's been now, 34 years, and be able to share my knowledge, my background, which is kind of unique. There's not a lot of athletes with my background, specific background in judo and MMA, at least Olympic judo and MMA and stuff like that. I think Rod D. Ferguson, you probably know who he is. He had mentioned it. I think there's only 3 or 4 judo Olympians that were also jiu-jitsu black belts in the U.S. That was kind of cool to be one of those. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and I'm excited, and I still like training. Still enjoy training, obviously, because I'm getting back into it. But I love it.
Good deal. Any parting words for anybody that's listening?
No, I appreciate the support, and if anybody is interested in kind of following my martial arts journey, getting back into it, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I was off Facebook for a little bit, just taking a break, but I'm back on as of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So going to be posting pictures and videos and stuff of my training and stuff like that. So it's Genghis Hawn on Facebook, and then Genghis Hawn 1, I think, on Instagram.
That reminded me, I did not ask about the nickname, so I love it. Fits perfectly. I obviously know it comes from Genghis Khan, but how did that nickname come around?
So, kind of a funny story. So in MMA, right, everyone has a nickname. It just kind of helps, helps your brand, whatever. And everyone's like, you can't give yourself a nickname. It has to be kind of given to you. So I don't think I had one earlier on. Maybe it was like Relentless Rick or something like, I don't know. There's something stupid. I think someone maybe locally did.
Relentless Rick.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Or
I'm glad you skipped that one, sir.
Yeah, me too. I think it was after one of my Bellator fights, I think, that someone on Twitter said, you should be called Genghis Hawn. And it kind of just stuck from that. And I apologize. I wish I remembered the person's name.
Wow.
Who started that, but it was pretty sure it was someone on Twitter who kind of I'm not on Twitter anymore, but who started that, and it just stuck.
That's really cool. This podcast, very small. I'm not looking to do anything as far as get famous or anything, but I always mention in every interview that the reason I do this is for my wrestlers and my students, past, present, and future, to hopefully give them some inspiration or motivation in their own life, because judo definitely changed my life, and I know that it changed yours. And the ideals and the mindset that martial arts have, I incorporate that on the wrestling mat. So once this is done, I'll send it your way. Feel free to share it if you like. Let your students listen to it if you like. And I know that I'll be passing this around to all the judo people that I know. So I really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much. And are you on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that?
I'm on Instagram. Well, the wrestling team is that I run, but I'll make sure that I follow you, because I know I already have you on Facebook. So I'll make sure that I add you to Instagram. It's ours is Sun Valley Spartan Wrestling. So that's who it'll be. And I'm gonna go ahead, and after this, I'll add you, and then you can follow back if you'd wish.
Perfect. Awesome.
Good luck at your school. Keep influencing young minds, and I know all your students appreciate what you do every day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And likewise to you. Good luck with everything and your wrestlers.
Well, sir, hope you have a good night, and thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.